I cured my ADHD the same way that I cured my depression. I know, it seems like those things are not possible because we've been told that by the medical profession. No, you can't do that. You have to go through all the things that are necessary, medications and therapy and all that. And that's true to a certain degree because I did all of that. But my story was a little different. In 1995, I was clinically depressed, and I've talked about this a bit, and I didn't understand it all. I had this proclivity of depression my entire life, even from a young child, which really didn't make a lot of sense because I didn't understand it. But then when I was going through this in 1995, when a doctor said, you are clinically depressed, it made sense because I had gone through a whole bunch of other stuff, physical ailments. I was in the hospital for more than a month. I mean, a lot of things that would make sense that I would be depressed. But I didn't know that. See, because when you start to live in a state for a long period of time, you can't see other things. You can't even see what's normal or what we think is normal. And so I didn't know that I was clinically depressed. A doctor had to tell me because I said, you're not functioning, something's wrong. I said, okay, so I went on medication because I understood, and they had to try several different ones because, not every one is going to work for each person. We're talking about the brain chemicals, the chemicals in your brain. And I started studying that a bit. I didn't have a lot of information. We didn't have the internet then, so I couldn't do what we can do today. But I did a look, and I went to a library. I started let me just find some information about this, and the doctors helped as well. And so I understood that the medication was shifting my brain chemicals, but my thoughts had created them to be what they were in the first place. So if my thoughts caused my brain chemicals to go off and I'm depressed, then maybe I could change that by starting to give my brain chemicals something different. And then I understood that, the medication worked to help to change that. And then I got to a place where I said, I feel different. Maybe I don't need the medication. That was the process that I went through. And again, that was in about 95, 96, I believe. And so then in 2020, things started to change a bit, as we all felt things changing in our world. And I started to feel that. And then I recognized I didn't have any people helping me. I didn't have any staff because I moved out of my office. I did all kinds of things. I changed a lot of stuff. And so I didn't have people helping me, taking care of the normal, mundane things that I didn't know how to do myself. And then a friend said, you might have something else going on here. And so I went to someone and I got an assessment, and it turns out, yep, I had ADHD. Wow. After I went through my initial shock and sadness and anger and every emotion you can possibly imagine, because I said, how could I have not known this? But as it was explaining so many things about my life. But I said, why did I suffer so long without knowing this? But then I decided, okay, well, I was given that, so now I'm going to do something with it. So I created a YouTube channel. I've done all that stuff. And I said, I'm going to talk about it because I couldn't find anybody else who discovered this at 70 years of age, because that's how old I was at the time it came up. And I thought, this is bizarre. And I kept working with it. So then I decided, do I have to go to a doctor? I knew this from before, and I went to one, and they gave me medication. So I was on medication for about a year or something. And then what happened, I was talking to the doctor a few weeks ago, and I said, I'm not sure, but I might have healed this. I might not need this anymore. And he said, I don't know. Well, we'll see. And I said, well, it's probably not been long enough. So I was going to go ahead and refill my prescription. But then what happened was there was no medication. It's a shortage everywhere because a lot of people discovered they had this as well during the pandemic. And so there's no medication. It's in a backlog forever for a lot of different reasons. And I said, I'm going to have to figure this out then. So I had to go through the physical withdrawals. I've done this before. I've done it with opioids, so I know the physical withdrawal symptoms, whenever you're addicted to something. And I had to go through all of those things, but I understood the process. And so I went through a few days after not being able to get the Adderall, so I said, I'm going to have to detox, and that's what happened. And then I started saying, wait a minute, I did it again. Yeah, I cured the ADHD. I didn't get rid of it. It's still there. I could still go back into that state if I chose to do that, but I'm not doing that. I'm just not doing that because what's happened is I know what it was. I didn't accept me. I couldn't accept me. And then when you've lived with something your entire life, from a kid, I was told I daydreamed. Wow, okay, that's a bad thing. But now I understand, wait a minute, I daydreamed because I had ADHD and I wasn't supposed to be oriented in the same way that everyone else was. I had something different, and because I wasn't oriented the same way everyone else was, I was able to access other information. This is documented, and I discovered this much later. I didn't know it at the time, but many people like me have received great work, so to speak, because of not being oriented in the same way everyone else was. And that's what I did. And it is possible for everyone. I don't see anything as being a disability. All we do is figure out the ability that we gain because of whatever we were given. That's all. Every single person. And the only work that I do is guiding everyone to that total acceptance of who they are, their authentic self, because that's where all of your riches are as well.